أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, all praise and thanks be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I adore him, glorify him. I believe he is only worthy of worship, the Lord of Lords, King of Kings, the gift of life, the provider, the sustainer. I especially thank him um, our, for the gift of life to this moment. There's many things that's been going on. COVID is still ongoing. There are many other issues. Killing spree that we've had recently in the UK, and the earthquake that is going on around the world, and there are many things that are happening. But Alhamdulillah for the gift of life. Alhamdulillah for making us Muslims to be thankful to Him. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to shower His rahmah upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Sahaba and his family, as they all continue to guide the Muslim Ummah and protect those that are going through suffering, alleviate their suffering, their sadness, and grant them peace in due course, inshallah. I mean, today, as our brother has said, we'll be talking about lessons from the Hijrah, inshallah. So last week, our Ustaz Nuruddin talked to us about Muharram. So we all know now that we are in the month of Muharram, and he went through the day of Ashura, which depending, because I know some areas, because of the sighting of the moon, some started on Monday, and I think some countries started on Tuesday. I think in the UK, I think we started on Tuesday. So meaning Ashura could be Tuesday or Wednesday next week, or this week rather, inshallah. So we will just look a little bit about, we all are looking at Hijri, the Hijri calendar, and we all know. Well, some of us don't know about the calendar itself. We just hear it, we just hear about Islamic year and everything. So we just want to enlighten us today, um, about the lessons, about the significance, and what do we mean by referring to Hijra? Do we mean, what is it? Is it just a calendar? What is the significance? What brought about the calendar? And so on and so forth. So, inshallah. So, first of all, just briefly into the calendar, how the Hijri calendar came about. As explained to us last week, there are 12 calendar months, as Allah explained to us in Surah to Toba, verse 36, I believe. But how did it come about? The calendar was not something that was established or in use during the time of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No, nor was it a command from him or discussed or insinuated during his lifetime. However, in order to, as Islam progressed, civilization progressed with it. As time went on, Islam as well adopted. I think about, was it 2 weeks or so ago, where we looked at the Islam versus culture. Again, we've explained to us that there are some cultural aspects that Islam adopted that is not haram, and there are some that Islam obviously rejected because it's not it's not in line with the Islamic principles. So calendar is something that came after the Prophet Muhammad, but it is still valid, and it is not bid'ah. That is, it's not an innovation. It was something that was discussed, debated about by the Sahabas then, and it was adopted. So, it was during the caliphate of the Khalifa Muhammad, the Amir al-Mu'minin, the Prince of the Believers. It was suggested during the rule of Abu Bakr, the first caliph, the first Khalifa of after the Prophet died. But given how the Sahabas were very, very, careful of what they did, they were very, if the Prophet did say something or they do nothing, they didn't want to hear it, they didn't want to be attributed to it. So Abu Bakr did not adopt that suggestion or did not go forward with it, though he only reigned for 2 years until he died, radiallahu anhu. And then Umar radiallahu anhu was the second Khalifa, and he was the longest serving Khalifa. He served, he was there for 10 years before he died, and Uthman radiallahu anhu took over. So it was during the era, during the reign of Umar, that the calendar came about. And it was, it was an advancement in Islam to tell time, to be able to tell time, day, and to govern how we go about our daily lives. And there were different things, because the Hijrah, Hijrah meaning in a literal sense, it means migration, migrating from one place to another, or migrating from one stage to another, but before that was adopted, there were other things. So things like, I think there were three things. I can't remember the total, but I know one of the things was the date of birth of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But the Sahabas agreed, the unanimous agreement was to start it with the dates that Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam migrated to Medina because of the significance of that day. And that's why today, inshallah, we're going to look at the lessons. Many of us just see it as a calendar, but it was a very turning point for Islam, that even Muslims probably didn't know then, but that it became to be a significant turning point for the propagation of Islam at that moment in time. So that's why it was quite significant, and it was adopted in the time of Umar. So what are lessons that we can learn from migration? What are lessons that, as many of us know, the Prophet Islam was born in Mecca. He was one of, he was born into a tribe that one of the most popular tribes in Mecca then. And he was loved, adored, even looked up to and trusted, that he was given, the nickname as Siddiq, the trustworthy and the honest, meaning for his truthfulness, for somebody that you can confide in and so on. So it was only until he became a prophet, he was called to prophethood at the age of 40, that he started to have issues, particularly with his family, and so on. So it got to the point that they have been going through that for so many years, and it was at the point that they had to leave for safety, to protect Islam, to protect their lives as well, and they had to leave for Medina. So we're gonna do that. There are many lessons that we could start a whole day lecture or even a whole week lecture and try to still decipher the lessons that we can learn from the migration, but we'll just look at a few today, inshallah, with the hope that it would be beneficial to us, and that we'll be able to learn from it. So the first thing that I would like us to look at is the sacrifices, the sacrifice and being patient, having sabr in Allah, having sabr in terms of difficulty, having patience in terms of a calamity, in terms of prayer, and the sacrifices that comes with it. So first of all, we need to understand and accept that there's nothing in life, either within religion or outside of religion. Well, obviously, when we look at life, we can't separate life from Islam anyway. For those that have attained a certain stage in their faith, Islam is a way of life. So whatever it is that you do, you're bounded by Islam. There's anything that we do, that we live in, Islam as discussed about it, as given some certain rules about it, or maybe if it's something that never happened during the time of the Prophet Muhammad or the Sahabas, based on Quranic and Quranic evidences and maybe Hadith and Ijma, the scholarly consensus, again, there's some report that would have been discussed about that. So we can't separate it from that. But let's say maybe some instances you may say, there's nothing to do with religion about that. Even with that, there's nothing in life, or there is no success in life without sacrifices. So when we look at this lesson from that, looking at the day that they had to migrate, obviously before the Prophet himself migrated, some of the Muslims had already gone forward, and it was just himself, it was Abu Bakr, Ali radiallahu anhu, that they had left, and some other notable people. So on the day, the Quraysh, the people that that ganged up against him, the families of Mecca that ganged up against him, had surrounded his household and wanted to persecute, wanted to kill him. But as Allah would have it, because again, and I'll come to that point in a second, that he was patient, and Ali was even afraid, because Ali was called upon to replace him, to replace the Prophet Muhammad, so he could escape, and Ali would replace him, would lie on his bed thinking that he was still around in the household. But the Prophet knew there was aid, there was help, there was support coming from Allah. And what he did was he recited the Surah Yasin that we recite quite famously. He recited Ayah 9. وَجَعَلْنَا مِن بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَأَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. And he blew dust into the atmosphere, and he was able to walk amongst the assassins without them noticing, to the point that until the next morning, they had waited and thinking what's going on is not coming out. They bashed into his house only for them to find Ali, and they were questioning him, so that was impossible. When did they leave? So the meaning of that verse, that Allah said that we have put a barrier, before them and a barrier behind them, and we have, we covered them so that they cannot see. So, that just shows to us that when we pray to Allah, He does answer. But the message about sacrifices is that when we look at the migration, this is somebody that had lived his life. He knew nothing. He knew no one else. He had lived all his life in Mecca. He was born in Mecca. He's a citizen of Mecca. His family all in Mecca. He grew up in Mecca. He had established himself in Mecca, but he had to leave after 13 years of harassment, persecution, abuse, attack, and so on. He had to make that sacrifice. Many of the Muslims back then, they left their household, families behind. They left their wealth, assets, properties, livelihoods, means of sustenance to a new entire area that they had no clue about, they had no knowledge about. They didn't know how they were going to survive. They didn't even know if they would be accepted. So that's a lesson for us, that when it comes to migration, that how many of us today are able to live that? They left everything. And in terms of the patience, is that in this day and age, any little trial we give up very easily. Any little trial we want to abandon that and move to something else. The Prophet Islam, after being called to prophethood in 610 AD, after 40 years of being born into this world, he suffered and suffered. His family suffered. His companions suffered for 13 years. It wasn't until the age of 53, that Allah ordered him to leave Mecca for Medina. So now imagine 13 years. Many of us wouldn't even last 6 months, let alone a year, let alone 13 years. So now looking at that sacrifice, after 8 years of moving to Medina, obviously there were battles that were fought and so on. There was a Treaty of Hudaybiyah, in between then a ceasefire, which was a ceasefire that they signed, which was obviously unfair to the Muslims back then. And but Allah reassured him that there will be victory, which is why we go Surah to Fatih to him, that there will be victory. And there was given victory, because again, he waited another 8 years to be patient, and he was given triumphant entry back to Mecca, after 8 years of living his hometown, living his life. Many of us are here today not because we were persecuted or we were put in exile or we were chased out. We made that decision. But the Prophet ﷺ, for his life, for the life of his fathers, of his family, and most importantly, to protect the message of Islam, they had to leave, but without sacrifices. And it was after the sacrifices that came success. He lost his children. Obviously, one of his daughter, Zainab, was knifed while in pregnancy, as a result of the persecution. Some of the Sahabas were killed, even during the Treaty of Hudaybiyah that they assigned a ceasefire. And that was what led to the triumphant entry back to Mecca. That the Prophet then stood up and said, no, we cannot tolerate this because they have breached the treaty. So one of the lessons, significant lessons for us to learn is the sacrifice that in life, you can't, it's just like the saying that you cannot uh, harvest where you do not plant. You know, you can't go to someone else's farm and pluck, I don't know, tomatoes, maize, fruits, rice, and so on, without that it wasn't your handiwork. You didn't plant nothing there. It's not your farm. You can't go to a stranger's farm hoping to harvest something and sell it in your own name. And that's the way sacrifices are. And this is the way our life is as well. That as a Muslim, as the Prophet said, that this life is like a prison to the believer, but it's like a paradise to the unbeliever. Because as a Muslim, there are many restrictions that we have to abide by. There are many commandments that we have to follow in order to please him. So, and in that way, we have to sacrifice. We have to sacrifice our love for, I don't know, maybe dressing in a certain way, maybe going to a certain gathering. Our youth today, we see alcohol as a normal thing, as part of enjoyment, or as that some of us believe alcohol, if we don't drink it to an intoxicated level, that we will be fine. But even a drop, even not just even consuming it, the Prophet has caused 10 people. And one of those are people that are around an area that is being consumed. People that touch it, you touch a bottle, you help somebody that sells it, the burial, and so on and so forth. So, there are many examples that we can give, but the ultimate lesson from this is that when we're talking about migrating from one country to another, how many of us lost a thing? Some of us, we didn't lose anything back on when we migrated to the UK, or migrated to Italy, or migrated to another country before we came to the UK. Many of us still, but we thought we could migrate for a greener pasture. We could migrate for our children, and so on and so forth. But the Muslims back then, they sacrificed a lot. A lot of them had nothing. They literally left with nothing. The Prophet Sallallahu and Abu Bakr, when he was, Allah answered his prayer from recited that surah to Yasin verse 9, and he fled with Abu Bakr. They found themselves in a cave, and they had spent some days there before they were able to leave, because they were still being chased, they were still being persecuted. So again, they didn't know what would happen. It was a case of, it was all up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sacrifice is part of success. Without sacrifice, you can achieve success. Because again, look at all students, for example. Sacrifice being the fact that you wake up all night studying. Sacrifice being that you go outside of the boundaries of what you've been taught in the class. You do your own extra research. You took time out when your friends are going out clubbing, which is obviously haram for us Muslims, or going to parties, or just relaxing, watching TV. You took time out to study. It's the same thing with our job as well. With sacrifices, some of us, we are in a job that maybe we're not happy, we're not miserable, but we took our time out to do an extra course, to upgrade ourselves, to do a personal development or something. It took time. It was a struggle. We had to pass exams. We had to study for it. But alhamdulillah, we passed it. We upgraded ourselves. We developed ourselves, personally, and then we were able to achieve, or go to interviews, pass it, and get a new job. So once again, that's a sacrifice. It's the same thing of learning learning Islamic knowledge, pursuing Islamic knowledge, while trying to balance our daily life, maybe our professional life, maybe our student life. Again, you're trying to balance that. But we see scholars today as like a super special human being, but they are not. They also sacrifice. As some of us, we were chasing after Western education, we were chasing after cars, we were chasing after playing with our friends, going out with our friends. We were chasing after like the dunya, but they were chasing after their hero, their hereafter. So they sacrificed their childhood, they sacrificed their time, woke up early in the morning, memorizing the Quran. Their weekend was for memorization. Their weekdays after school, was to go to madrasa and to learn the fiqh, to learn the Aqidah and so on. And today, alhamdulillah, you will see scholars today who are just age 20, some of them a bit younger than that, because they sacrificed their childhood and achieved success at the right time, because and Allah rewarded them with the success because they sacrificed, they gave up the dunya for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah rewarded them accordingly. And in that as well, it's not just sacrificing. Many of us, we've done a lot, but we've not attained anything. And that shows at the same time as well, is having the patience that you may have given up everything for Allah, but Allah does not owe you anything. It doesn't not owe you. It doesn't mean He has to give you back anything, because at the end of the day, Allah is not in need of anything from us. He's free of wants. He's free of power. He's free of anything. We are the one that we are in need. Everything that we are doing, yes, we are praising Him. Is happy. Allah loves those that praise Him, but at the same time, praises, glorifying Him, thanking Him, it is for our own benefit. So, it's to remain patient at the same time as making those sacrifices that this I'm doing. I don't expect any return from it, but I can only hope to Allah to forgive me of my sins and to do the best of me that will be beneficial to me. So that's number one lesson, that to think about what they sacrificed there. Many of us cannot even sacrifice a quarter or like 0.111% of it. And when you think about it deeply as well, if they had not made those sacrifices and be patient, remain steadfast, Islam would have not grown to the state that it has today. So moving on to the next point, that the next point is having tawakkul and obeying His commandments. So tawakkul is relying on Allah, that unwavering, undiluted, a trust that is without doubt, a trust that it is it is 100%, that whatever happens, that trust, come earthquake, come typhoon, come this trial or that trial, no matter what it is, that trust remains firm in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's another thing as well. So I mentioned earlier that the Prophet recited that verse in Surah Yasin. It was because of his trust in Allah. He trusted, and again, we have, we've told us mentor that the Quran is a ruqyah for anything, is a healing. It is a healing for anything. Whatever it is that you are seeking or you are suffering, as long as you believe, there is no special surah or it is the research and the faith, the commitment of our scholars today, that they've come to, maybe they've used a particular surah, a particular verse, that, oh, I use this and it worked for me. But every verses in the Quran is a form of, power, is a form of ruqyah, is a form of, of admonition, and is a form of protection for us. So, he recited that verse, and Allah protected him, and Allah blinded those that were going to assassinate him. At the same time, part of the tawakkul as well, having trust, and unwavering trust in Allah, is that I mentioned earlier that they didn't go to Medina straight away. They couldn't, because they were still being chased, and they hid in a cave. And in that cave, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu mentioned, because they were in that cave for days, and Asma bint Bakr, the daughter, the sister of Aisha radiallahu anha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, was the one taking food to them in the cave. And this before I move forward, this important statement I just mentioned, should tell us how important our women, our sisters are in Islam, how Islam values the contribution, the involvement of sisters. There are many, religions or many people out there that criticizes that Islam, subjugates women. Islam criticizes women. Islam is, racist or so, whatever against women. But it's not so. There's a lot of role, that women played in Islam, and one of it is that Asma was the one taking food to the Prophet and our father in the cave and hiding. Many of us would be afraid, because they were all afraid. Because imagine if she was taking the food and she went and they stopped her, and and I think, if I remember, I can't remember very well, but I think at some point she was stopped. But Allah, alhamdulillah, Allah saved her from that. They didn't get to know that. But imagine if she was stopped and she got killed for that, for helping, the Prophet and our father, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in that cave, as I was saying, when the persecutors, the Quraysh people, they got close to the point that the Abu Bakr saw the feet of one of the persecutors near the cave, and Abu Bakr was saying to the Prophet, "Oh, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. What if they see us?" And the Prophet said to Abu Bakr that, "Don't worry, that don't be afraid. Allah is with us." Again, that is the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we go through many trials, we go through many things, but sometimes we make dua without sincerity. We're just making the dua for sake of it. Some of us, we're just praying, fasting for the sake of it. We're not having the trust that what our actions will bring us back good news, glad tidings. And sometimes as well, we are blinded by the fact of the trial that we are going through. We are blinded that everything has its time. There's patience with everything. Another I said to us in the Quran that if he had uncovered, he had sort of, opened the curtain of what he had protected us from, that we will be shocked, open our mouth, not be able to close it. So there are many things that goes on in our life that we are being protected from, and that's why that dua is not being answered at that particular time. So tawakkul, and as I said, that obeying the commandments of Allah. So in addition to having the trust in Allah, the Prophet as well obeyed him, because like I said, this is someone that, imagine, we've obviously made this place our home. Maybe many of our parents still think of Nigeria on a daily basis. Some of them are even thinking and planning of how they can go back home and retire back in Nigeria. Some of them have even gone back and they just come over to the UK occasionally. But we, their children, we youths, many of us don't see ourselves living in Nigeria again, not permanently anyway. Many of us have called this place our home. Some of us have never even been to Nigeria. And those that have been, we didn't even see the significance of it, because we are British, we've developed a life here. Now imagine the UK government saying, "Oh, because you are black, or because you're Nigerian, or because you're Muslim, you're not, yes, we are British, but we are not white." That's a fact. You can carry the red passport and flaunt it as much as you want, but they can, nobody knows tomorrow. There are many legislation that has been passed that people of the past would have never envisaged it to come to happen. So tomorrow, there could be a disagreement in the parliament, and they could be like, "Sorry, you guys have to go back to your country." Imagine, for those that still remember, it is still very fresh in many people that are affected in their mind. The issue of the what's it called? I can't remember. The word came to my mind now. I think majority of them Jamaicans that were deported back to their country, because back then when they migrated here, there was no such thing as a paperwork, there was no passport, there was no evidence. They were accepted onto the system as being legal, as being accepted, as because it was part of the British Columbia, obviously, of the British territories. But it now came in recent years now that, oh, sorry, there's
the Green Rush generation.
Sorry?
The Green Rush generation.
Oh yeah, thank you, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, so the Green Rush generation that, imagine they had lived, some of them, it's not even just a generation of family that had lived there, it's like 2 generations or 3 generations. But some of them were deported. Some of them, luckily, before the government did the youth, but a lot of them were deported back to their country. So imagine that could be made into a law in the future, that we're just carrying the red British passport. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't identify you. Obviously, we are Muslims first, and we are Nigerian as well, and we are British Nigerian. But they could decide that we're not necessarily part from here. We are citizens, but we're not white, and so on. So for the Prophet Sallallahu, it would have been a painful thing that to have obeyed, but Allah commanded it, and they had to leave. They had to migrate to Medina. They had to leave. Another thing as well is that many of us, as I said earlier, we would have run at the minute of being persecuted. I mean, look at us here in Nigeria. Yes, it's considered as a third world country. There is no fairness. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of interracial, even inter-religion, inter ethnicity, should I say, war going on. But there are still people living there peacefully. There are still people making it successfully. There are still people being able to afford 3 square meals. But many of us, we just thought, oh, I want to move out, We did not, some of us did not even suffer anything. Some of them, our life was not in danger, but we left our country. We left, without even thinking twice about it. But the Prophet ﷺ waited 13 years of persecution, 13 years of his uncle, cursing him and his family because of proclaiming the message of Islam. 13 years of his children dying and, people making fun of him. 13 years of his followers being persecuted left, right, and center. 13 years of not even being able to proclaim Islam publicly, because if he did, you'll be killed immediately. So, but he waited because Allah did not command him to leave. Allah told him to carry on. Allah told him to carry on the message. Allah gave him the confidence to carry on, to go into the public and do as commanded. He waited 13 years, and even after the 13 years, he was commanded to go and leave, that it is time to move. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah as well. People, Sahabas like Umar, Ali, they were like, oh, because one of the conditions was that if our people, that is the Quraysh, were saying that if our people come to you wanting to accept Islam, you should not accept them, you should return them to us. But if your people come to us, we're going to retain them, they will never be sent back to you. And that was in any contract, in any business negotiation, and that would be seen as unfair. Well, obviously, in every transaction contract, there is an element of one benefiting than the other, but it depends on what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're willing to compromise. But in this case, this was a 100% on total unfairness to the Prophet or to Islam. But the Prophet abided by it and calmed the Sahabas, and Allah came to to protect it, and Allah came to make him happy, because he revealed Surah Al-Fatih for him as a victory. And after 8 years, even though the wait was long, they were able to return to Mecca, and they conquered Mecca. Mecca that now today is a Muslim country. Now today that we're able to go to, Hajj, Umrah peacefully, without any issues, without any persecution about your skin color, about who you are as a person, and so on and so forth. A place that nobody will know if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're disabled, or if you're well, if you're ill. You're all common. You're all the same status under the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the sacrifice they made, and this is him, committing to Islam and abiding by the laws of Allah. But many of us today, look at our youth today. We use that, we are very lazy in our religion. We are very preoccupied with the worldly matters. We are very engrossed in the pleasures of the dunya. Because why? Because, we're distracted. Our faith is not strong enough, because it is the level of your iman as well that will give you the conviction of having the tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And without the tawakkul, you cannot obey him fully, because it is the tawakkul. Okay, for example, now we are praying 5 times a day. Many would argue in a logical manner that what is the essence of it? What does it do? The Prophet ﷺ told us that every time we stand in prayer, our sins, obviously the minuses, commenders say we have to repent for it and ask for forgiveness. But our minuses are put on our shoulder. As we go into ruku, go into sujud, they fall off. But in a logical sense, someone would say, how is that possible? That something that we cannot see, something that we cannot quantify or describe or measure. But it is the trust. The Prophet ﷺ said so, and we have to trust in him. Because Allah says in the Quran that he has sent him as a messenger, and people or the believers we believe in it, we believe in Allah. If we believe in Allah and we reject the Prophet, then we are not Muslims, because you cannot separate one from the other. He is the one that brought the message, and that's why we know Islam as it is today. That's why we're able to learn the Quran, we're able to learn other aspects of Islam, you know. Or, for example, as well now, we're going to Hajj and doing this pilgrimage and doing the circumambulation and so on. Someone will say, what's the essence of it other than sightseeing? But again, it is the trust that if we go and we do it according to the laws that has been laid out, we will be forgiven. It will be like a clean slate for us, you know. So again, these are some of the examples that the use of our youth, you know, we use today. We are lacking in it. We don't see it as a problem. Many of us have friends that, you know, and again, we apply logic before we apply the teachings of Islam. That's why we have friends that are not bringing any benefit to us. You know, we go out clubbing with them. We go to haram events with them. Some of us are even engaging in haram relationships, you know, as that. So tawakkul and obeying in his commandments is another significant lesson that we should learn in this day and age, that if the Prophet didn't trust in him, that he went to an unknown area. Imagine, as I was saying, that you've established yourself. Some of us have got businesses in this country. Some of us, we've made it so far that we are seniors, we are a consultant, we are an expert in our field, to the point that some of our brothers and sisters, you know, Nigerian brothers and sisters in the country, they are even being consulted by the government. That's how established they are in the country. But imagine if you had to uproot all that to move to an unknown area, a place where you didn't know. You know, some of us came to this country not having no friends, not having no familiar faces. You know, some of us came when the UK was still mostly white, you know, like not many blacks, or even if you saw black, there was just people that did not understand you or did not come from the same culture. So again, it is the trust that the same way we establish our business and we trust in our instinct, we trust in our handiwork, we trust in the support from others financially, or support from others, you know, what's the word, patronizing us, you know, patronizing our businesses, that we hope that we'll be able to make it and grow the business. So it is that trust that we need to have in that, because without the tawakkul in Allah, there's nothing, there's no success either. Because as I said, you can sacrifice, you can remain patient, but if you're sacrificing and being patient, and you know, it's like I'm asking Allah for, oh, I want a car, I want you know, the new Lexus, or the new what's it called, what's this car called? I can't remember, this electric car. I can't remember now. Anyway, so but make it that dua, but then in your mind you're having a doubt. Oh, can I even afford it? Oh, you know, okay, I don't have a good credit, or and this and that. So you're doubting. Obviously, you have to be realistic. There are some dua, no matter how much you sit down on the mat, even if you were to go to Mecca and do all that, it's never gonna be accepted, because it is not realistic. It's like asking Allah, oh, yeah, Allah, I want Chelsea to beat Arsenal. Oh, yeah, Allah, I want Manchester City to win the Europe. No, that's unrealistic. That's even un-Islamic, because we don't have any business with such a thing. Yeah, I'm not saying sports in general is haram in Islam, but, you know, like supporting a sport to the point that is taking your time off. I know people that if their team loses, they won't even eat. I know them, some of them, they will feel low and that, but that's just the dunya. We don't have any business. You can support it in a halal limited way. If they lose, fine. If they win, fine. Some of us go even as far as betting, gambling, which is haram in Islam, that Allah warned us about in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 90, you know. So these are some of the dua, that some duas are not realistic and they will never be accepted because it is not part of Islam. But when we are making dua, let's have the trust in Allah, you know, let's be obedient first as well. Don't, if you're making dua and you're not praying, you're not fasting, you're not doing your zakah, you're not being nice to people. There are times that you can do all the obligations, but your character is bad, your akhlaq, you know, as the Prophet ﷺ said, even for marriage, he said to our parents that if a man approaches you asking for your daughter in marriage, if you're happy with his deen and akhlaq, good manners, then marry your daughter to him. So that tells us that deen and akhlaq is not separated. You can have a good deen, but if your akhlaq, your good manners, good character is poor, you're not, your deen or your spirituality is not complete enough. So, tawakkul, having the, that undiluted, unwavering trust in Allah and obeying his commandments, because if we obey him, surely he will reward us. So that is another significant lesson that we can learn from the Hijrah. And inshallah, then another lesson to learn from that as well, from the Hijrah, from the migration of the Prophet Muhammad to Medina, is also the Brotherhood, and this is probably a very, very significant lesson that probably trumps, I wouldn't say it trumps that, it trumps all whatever lesson that you want to derive from the Hijrah, but it is very significant. And this is even more significant in our day, because there's no much unity in our community. There's no such thing as brotherhood, sisterhood, which is why we're having a lot of problems. Now, brotherhood in the sense that, look at where it migrated to. There was a year before the migration that the Prophet was preaching to a group in Mecca, to the Quraysh people, and 6 of those people were from Yathrib. Yathrib was the old name for Medina. So the Medina used to be called Yathrib before it became Medina. And these people, they returned back to Medina, and the following year, they brought, I think 12 people, they brought 12 people with them, I believe, to accept Islam, So they were part of the groups that accepted Islam, 6 of them. They went back, they brought 12 people with them the following year. Again, these people accepted Islam. And also, they went back and came back the following year and brought 75 people with them. Out of these 75 people, 2 were women. Again, another emphasis on our sisters, our mothers, our aunties, our sisters generally in Islam, the emphasis, the importance of women in Islam, that yes, obviously Islam, we're not saying women should go out there and be doing public speeches or showing themselves, sort of putting themselves out there in a vulnerable state. But there are 2 ways Islam encourages the contribution. And, Islam welcomes suggestions from women, it's not like once a man says something that's the final. Even in marriage, you see that marriage is a companionship, is a unionship, is a union that, men and women, a husband might come up with something regarding your child, and it may not be the best idea. It may be the wife that may come up with the best idea and they adopt that. Even in a council, in a masjid, they will have sister circle, they will have women's forum. Women's contribution may be something that will take that masjid or that organization forward that the brothers never thought of, not because they're not intelligent or smart enough, but because Allah has that suggestion that will be adopted will come from the sisters. So again, the emphasis shows us that women were very much part of Islam from the early stage, and not just people that were sidelined or people that were told to shut up and they shut up and they just kept quiet. No. So brotherhood. So they came back, 75 people, they accepted Islam, and they met at the city, Aqaba, which I think today is part of Jordan, and they signed a treaty. So the people of Medina back then, they told the Prophet they swore is their allegiance to him. The Prophet never ever thought of, he never knew, he never even envisaged Medina to be their abode, to be their sanctuary, to be the city that would accept them. He went to Taif, and what happened? It was stoned. He went to Taif to grab the message. It was stoned to the point that it was bloody, of how they treated him. He never ever thought of for a second that Medina would be. So what I'm trying to say that about brotherhood is that when Prophet Muhammad and his people, they migrated to Medina. People of Medina, they didn't say, oh, we don't know you. Oh, sorry, like we can't help you. They embraced them. Those that shared their houses, shared their houses. Those that shared their food, shared their food. Those that shared their clothing, their livelihood, their sustenance, everything that you could need to sustain yourself as a human being, they shared with them. And that is brotherhood. That is unity amongst the Muslims. And forget the treaty, because if even then there were still people that are not accepting Islam back then, that and they embrace them. And that's why today, as much as Mecca is a significant city in Islam, and obviously we go there for spiritual rites and worship, Medina would always be a peaceful and lovely and a city that it will continue to be written down as a city that it is a city that you can't say anything bad about it. Even after the triumphant entry back to Mecca, after 8 years of their first Hijrah, the Prophet remained and died in Medina. It didn't say that, oh, now that we've conquered Mecca and Islam now has been widely accepted and the Quraysh were now subjugated totally, they had no choice but to either accept or to leave. He never returned to Mecca to live there. He spent the rest of his life in Medina. He established a country in Medina because of the love, of the unity, of the protection, something that was provided to them back then. I didn't mean that they chased them out, just like other cities chased them out. They may have been killed, maybe, if Allah had wished that. So brotherhood in today's age is that, look at us now. Let's even look at within the Yoruba culture. Many of us, if we are in a job and our brother or sister come home, brother or sister help me, we are already thinking of how this person could come and take over me. Not knowing that every human being in this world, Allah has destined the way your success, your trials, your triumphs, your failures, your hit and near misses, the ones that you may get a job today, you may lose it tomorrow. You may never get a job but still be comfortable. You may never be rich, but you may be richer, not in terms of money, but your life will be at peace than some other person that have got wealth. But we don't think that. What we are thinking first is, oh, this person is gonna come, and we will tarnish and destroy that person's career in that moment for the fear of they will come and take my position. Again, many of our brothers and sisters, they have businesses out there that is a quality business, a business that should be patronized, but would rather go and buy from outside community and not patronize our brothers and sisters. Yet we're shouting every day, oh, we want to progress, we want to help, but we're not patronizing, we're not supporting their business to grow businesses within the community, within the Muslim community. Many of us, we have families in Nigeria that we know they are suffering, that we can bring them over to this country, or we may not bring them, but you can support them financially. But he said, oh, I worked hard for my success. You have 2 hands, you have 2 legs, go and work hard. We call them names that you don't even know the hardship, the hard work they've done to even get to the state they have. But because you found it easy, and only by the sake of Allah, only by the power of Allah, because Allah can take it in 1 second from you. There are people now, there are people of the past, there are people alive today, notable, significant, powerful household name, that they were rich yesterday, but they're no more today. Some of them are still alive, but they're nowhere to be found or heard because Allah has disgraced them to the lowest of the lowest level. Allah has degraded them to the lowest possibly level that you can think of. Because why? They were arrogant. They thought it was by their own doing. They thought, oh, they can walk arrogantly and they can walk with pride and ridicule someone else's. But they don't know that that same person you ridicule may become your boss tomorrow. That same person that you ridicule may have a business that will be more successful than yours. Some of us, we have a knowledge we can pass over to people. A simple knowledge that is not going to cost you anything. It will not affect you. Just you're already successful in your own business. The brother is maybe going to another town. Pass on the knowledge. Teach them the trade. But no, we will like, oh, you know what? I'm not too sure. I don't know. Yeah, just go and say. Sometimes even the worst even of the situation is that we even lie, or we make some lies, and or we tell them the wrong thing that could even endanger their life or could endanger their sustenance. And we forget that Allah is watching us. Allah is waiting for us, because on the day you would have to account, He would ask you that, you know, like, was it you? Was it by your own doing that you became what you became? And the Prophet already said to us that this is specifically to charity, but I believe the message is applicable to anything, that no matter how much we spend out of our money, if you're spending it for the sake of Allah, you're never gonna go poor. But we think about wanting to be rich to the point that money we are wasting it. What the message is about, that you're never gonna be poor, is that you will have what you need to be comfortable, as long as you do not go outside of your limit. Because we do that sometimes. Sometimes we cannot afford a car. We go and take out a credit loan, a haram credit loan, riba based, and want to pay for something that you know you cannot afford in the first place. But we are trying to take advantage of the haram system that has been set up in the country. You know, so brotherhood is very, very important. That helping somebody, having that honesty. Look at the Prophet, for example. He had a nickname. He was given a nickname before he even was called to prophethood. He was known to be trustworthy and honest before he became a prophet. His honesty was what wowed and, you know, like sort of convinced Khadija that this is somebody, even though he was much more younger than her, sorry. But obviously, us youth today, we are thinking, oh no, how can I marry somebody so much younger? Our sisters are out there, no husband, no suitors, and they are still waiting. Some of them are in their 30s, some of them are going to their 40s, and they are still waiting on somebody much older, or they are still waiting for that brother to come and propose. When you have amongst, you know, there are examples from amongst, let's even forget Khadija. We have our sisters, some of our sisters today, that they have done the, you know, what the society think as wrong, which Islam permits. Khadija was wealthy. She was from a noble family. You know, she was much older than the Prophet Muhammad, and yet she made the proposal, and yet she was happy, delighted, and really like surprised about how honest. It was her friend then that would say, oh, you know, this prophet that you sent on this journey, this man that you sent on this journey, you know, in fact, the way he dealt with the caravans, the way he dealt with the merchandise, merchants, and so, if you know, this and that. And that's how she fell in love with him. You know, if it wasn't for the honesty, you know, that people are saw in him, then he may have been persecuted for even much more than that when he became a prophet. But because of his honesty, and for those of us that may not know, the problem, and if I remember correctly, I think in the hadith or so, they said this to him, the Prophet, that it wasn't that they didn't accept, or they didn't want to accept that there was a supreme being, or there was a new religion, or so on. It was the fact that why him? Why the Prophet Muhammad, him? Why not another person? Why not somebody else from another tribe? Why him from that particular tribe have been made a prophet, and that it would then come and, you know, be dictated to them? It was a young man among all of them. So why him? That was their major problem. It wasn't the fact that they didn't want to accept the message. It was the fact that, yes, we accept God as you, we accept this and that, but we do not accept you as a prophet. And that was where, you know, they incurred the wrath of Allah, because Allah said, this is my messenger, this is my message, you believe it, and you have to. You either obey it 100% or you don't. You can't be one leg in, one leg out. You can't be like that. So it is part of the unity amongst the Muslims there, that they, you know, the people of Medina embraced them. They shared everything with them. Some of us, when our brothers or sisters when I say brothers and sisters, I'm not talking about family relatives particularly, but it may be a friend that came from Nigeria to stay here. And instead of you to direct them appropriately or do this or do that, we lie. We start lying. We make it difficult for them. And you know, when you came to this country, you had so much support that, you know, seeking housing from the council or applying for benefits or seeking a job or applying for education, you had it easy because you were supported by people that were honest, that people that, regardless of how successful you become after them, they supported you regardless because their iman was strong. They trusted in Allah that whatever it is, whatever it is of my livelihood, of my sustenance, it is from Allah and not from my own doing. Yes, we can't just pray to Allah and hope that it's just going to happen. No, you have to work towards it. The point of having the tawakkul in Allah is not just sitting down, because the Prophet didn't sit down. During those 13 years, he didn't sit down at home, you know, saying, I'm just going to, okay, let me just propagate Islam to my family alone. No, he went ahead to the point that Allah instructed him to go on top of a mountain in the early hours of that day. And he called people out. Oh, if I was to tell you today that there's a danger coming from behind me, would you accept it? Would you believe me? And they said, yes. Why? Because he was a honest man. And then if I was to say to you that, you know, if you do not obey Allah's commandment, or if there's a day that will come, a day of reckoning, a day of punishment, that would you believe me? And that's where the problem is, that Abu Sufyan, you know, Abu Lahab, sorry, that it caused him right then that, oh, is this for this nonsense that you called us out in the early hours? And that's why Allah caused him and his family. It's Surah to Lahab, you know, in the Quran. And again, you know, he could have not propagate, it could have just kept quiet, it could have, okay, let me stop here for now. Let me, you know, observe the community, maybe give it another year or two, then I will continue. No, it carried on despite the persecution. Look at Bilal, for example. Bilal that was a slave and became somebody that was looked up to, became somebody that was important, that was a celebrity, a slave, that many of us today will be like, oh, we're not in the same status, I can't marry you. Oh, we're not in the same class, I can't go out with you. Oh, we're not in the same category, you know, I cannot deal in business with you. Or they cannot, oh, please, when we're going out of the house, you go out first and go a separate way. So, you know, they cannot see me being associated with you, you know. And, you know, you know, like, it could have been like that, let's wait and observe. But Bilal was somebody that, even though he was being punished, he was taken out in the scorching sun, he was tied to a rope, he was beaten, and he was still proclaiming his, you know, shahada unto Abu Bakr anhu, you know. No, I think it was Hamza, I can't remember. Abu Bakr or Hamza was the one that then paid his freedom. And then, you know, and he was made a muazzin, the call to Adan, and he came and so on. So now imagine, that was a slave. That's number one. Number two, of all the suffering that he went through, he could have kept quiet, but he said he would rather die on that punishment than to renounce, because he had, you know, Allah had guided him after he had heard the message from Hamza. Yeah, I believe it was Hamza. Yeah, that he had heard the message from Hamza, that the uncle of the Prophet that was killed in the Battle of Uhud, you know, may Allah be pleased with him, that he had heard the message. He was convinced and he accepted Islam, and he kept on like that. And there were many Sahabas like that, you know, that they were persecuted, they were attacked, they lost so much family, livelihood, assets, properties, that they didn't even know how they were going to live until tomorrow. Brotherhood. Another example, when they migrated to Medina, Aisha Aniya approached Bilal and Abu Bakr, and they heard them. They became ill. They became ill out of their soul, because it was an unknown land. Even though the people there shared everything, it was an environment that they didn't know. You know, it's just like going to a foreign land and not being able to communicate with them because they don't speak English, or they don't speak your language, or not being able to know left from right. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to go about it. That's how they felt. And it's not just even that. They had the support from the people of Medina, like I said, but It's because the Prophet ﷺ told us that no matter where we are or where we go in our life, we should always love our country. Because that will always be our country. No matter, you can say you're British, I'm Italian, this, you can carry 6 passports. That's your problem. You will always be Nigerian to the core, but that's your ethnicity. Yes, we are also British. We can also claim this country, but really and really, our Nigeria is also part and parcel of us, even if you've never lived there. So these are people, they were yearning for their homeland. They were suffering, they became ill. And Aisha heard them. They were saying in poetry, different things that, in suffering, and they were making dua. They were saying to Allah, oh Allah, I don't even know if I'm going to live until tomorrow. I don't even know what I'm going to do this and that. And the Prophet made dua. He made dua to Allah that to make Medina, to make them love Medina like they loved Mecca, to avail, to take away any disease, away from them. He made dua and so on and so forth like that to Allah. And look at Medina today. And I've heard from some of our fathers here on this platform and mothers that have been to Hajj, that they've said that, wallahi, Medina, the people, and myself, I experienced that as well when I went there, even try to buy something, they are very nice. They are making a trade, and it is permissible in Islam to make profit. It is, it is not wrong to buy something for 20 pounds and sell it for 50 pounds. There's nothing wrong. You're a trader, you're a business person. But these are people that they were lovely. They, you would, even if you didn't want to buy from them, you will buy because of that, love that they showed. But Mecca is a different thing. The security is a problem. Their traders is also a problem. Somebody, I even remember one of them calling me an agent of Shaitan because I was trying to bargain something that I wanted to buy. So again, look at Medina today. Medina is a lovely city. It's a city that even if you didn't go for Umrah or Hajj, people still go there to visit the city. They still go there to visit the masjid, So this shows, so the Prophet has made dua that to make Medina, to put the love there, to make it as lovely as, as they love their homeland, because it is saddening to have to be made exile. Okay, look at our brothers and sisters today in Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, and so on. Look at the persecution or the Rohingya Muslims in Burma, or the Uyghur Muslims in China. The persecution in China, there was a year they were not allowed to fast, or they were not allowed to close their businesses to go and pray or do anything. Look at the sufferings that they are going through. They remain there because they have tawakkul in Allah. But the Prophet Islam did not flee at the moment, at the first. He could have fled. To the point that people went, the Quraysh, they went to his uncle, Abu Talib, that, hey, warn your nephew, if you don't, it is going to the point that we're going to hurt him. Warn them. And Abu Talib explained all this to the Prophet Islam. And the Prophet Islam became emotional, that even you, my uncle, that I'm relying upon, that, and he said that, if you're not going to support me, then that's fine. I'm going to carry on. And the uncle felt bad that, you know what, at this stage, if you want to dance, you want to go to the public, go ahead, I'm behind you. Whatever you need, I will support you with, which is why it was a saddening day for the Prophet, the day Abu Talib died, that he did not accept the Shahada because of what he did for Prophet Muhammad and Islam. That many Christians will not do for Muslims, many Jews will not do for Muslims, because they see us as enemy. They believe, even though there's clear message that had come after. When the Prophet got to Medina, he did not tell the Jewish or the Christians to renounce their deen. He did not tell them, oh, you know what, you would have to leave this, because Allah gave, because of the dua that he made, and because of what they had left, gave up in Mecca, Allah made Medina his kingdom for him. He became the king, the ruler of Medina. But he never persecuted the people of other religion. Obviously, there was rules they had to follow, just like we're in the UK. We are able to go to, there are many masjids, we can pray without any problems. Yes, of course, there's racism in the community, that is a fact. But the government or the country as a whole, officially, they accept Islam. We're able to go to our masjid. We're able to celebrate Eid whichever way we want to. We are even allowed to have Eid party in the park, in a public space. We're able to wear the niqab, which you are protecting, because with the security issue, which is some of what our sisters don't understand, that sometimes in certain places, it's not allowed because of security issue, but you are allowed to wear it freely in public. Obviously, in certain places, you take it off. But so this again is the way the prophets have made Medina to other people of belief. He never renounced them. But today, we Muslims, we don't even want to associate. We don't even have unity with our own family, let alone our brothers and sisters in Islam. You know, we're not willing to help, and we always see our other brother or sister as an enemy, or it's gonna come and take over, or you know, it's gonna come and do this, you know, and that. We never think that this thing that you're fighting against, this thing that you're holding on to, like it is your own, it is Allah. Allah will take you away at any time. You know, Allah can take it away, or Allah may not take it away, but that person you're lying, you're going against, or backbiting or plotting evil against, Allah can make him or her richer than you, that there's nothing you can do about it. You will say, oh yeah, ritualist, oh yeah, but that's your problem. For whoever Allah's protection, Allah has protected, there's no one that cannot protect that person, and there is no evil plan against that person that would work, you know. Which is why, because Allah had made the prophet his protection and he had protected, there was nothing. Yes, he had lost people, but that was a trial for him. But he himself, Allah protected him throughout all the trials. So brotherhood is a significant lesson to learn. That it was Muslims of today, wallahi, we would not have accepted the Prophet and his community. And that would have affected the propagation of Islam. They may have not had any place to go. They may have eventually be persecuted, because obviously Medina was a city where the Quraysh people had no jurisdiction, you know. So they couldn't just go to Medina and start to do whatever they wanted. It was a sanctuary that today, Muslims of today, we are busy fighting each other. Look at Nigeria, for example, now. We are busy attacking each other. Oh, I'm Ahlul Sunnah, you are Sufi, I'm Sunni, I'm Shia, which is not going to do anything for us on the day of Qiyamah. Who are you to brand somebody Ahlul Sunnah, people of the book, or people of the Sunnah? Who are you to brand somebody Kafir? Who are you to brand somebody, or your Islam is lacking? We are here to admonish, to educate people, and you leave them to what they are doing. As long as you protect your own family, your own brothers and sisters in the community as best as you can from this person, but it is not for you to call them that to sort of say they're not part of the Sunnah. It is only Allah that knows who is the Sunnah and who is not doing the Sunnah. You know, we're busy bickering. Among our scholars today are busy bickering about how they will share money from an Akiko, about how they are busy fighting about seniority when they go to an event, so that they can calculate how much each one will get, or who's gonna take the highest money. They are busy fighting about their own teacher, that, you know, because maybe somebody said their teacher made a mistake. Yeah, they are busy defending their teacher that, you know, genuinely may have made a mistake, but you're defending in the process of, there's a debate is allowed in Islam, but it has to be, you know, a halal debate, a peaceful debate, a debate that at the end of it, you will come to learn and gain knowledge. The Prophet has warned us about fighting about something that we do not have knowledge about fighting over knowledge, because knowledge, that, you know, you might have your limit, might be the beginning of someone else's knowledge. You know, there's no one that knows all. So if he warned us about bickering, fighting, arguing about certain things, that whatever it is, you know, I said, agree to disagree and despise, because you're going to start delving to positions where you start committing sin, because you start judging each other, you start calling each other names, which is not part of Islam. We're meant to come together to propagate Islam, to educate each other, to, you know, to enlighten each other, so that we can, because I may have been doing something one way, And this is very common in our Nigerian community. And this is the problem we as youth are facing, even with you, our parents. Because alhamdulillah, Allah has made it a bit easier for us than He did with you back home, that we have resources are available to us, but we are lazy. You, our parents, are hardworking. You are seeking knowledge as best as you can, even in your, as the stage that you are now. But the sources that you had, the resources was limited. But we have the resources today. We are internet babies, like, as they say. But we are also finding it difficult that when we've learned something, I try to say like, oh no, because my Afa said this, oh, this is the way our forefathers did it. And again, that's not, and we start calling each other names, they will start, insulting their teacher and so on, which is not necessary for Islam. Again, it's part of the, disunion among the brotherhoods. Even in the UK, for example, look at our scholars, look at different Muslim organizations. There are organizations today that for decades they've been trying to establish a proper mosque, but because of the disunity, we can't. Why can't this organization, like 5 organizations, come together and contribute to that? And when I say contribute, some of these organizations have contributed, yes, but it's just a small token. Come together, put like half of your savings together and establish that mosque in the name of Islam. But the question would be, oh, who's gonna be the leader? Or who's gonna be the imam? Okay, in this in our own mosque culture, if you run this event, the Afar takes like 90%, but this play we don't, all unnecessary dunya stuff that is not gonna help us on the day of Qiyamah. And that's why the Nigerian Muslim community is having a problem. We keep saying the future is the youth, but yet we are doing things that is clipping the wings for our youth to fly. We cannot fly because we have wings to fly, but we've been, it's been clipped because of issues that you parents or our adults are bringing into the fold, because of things that, oh, this person is better. Oh, I'd rather follow this scholar. Oh, this scholar, he did this, he did that, or that. We start creating like, small groups. We start creating like loyalty groups. I'm loyal to this person, so I will not follow this person. I've even heard of a situation because of a small rift. And yes, our scholars, again, some of them have caused that reason, but because of a small rift about the congregation is not paying enough money to the affairs. And the president then disagreed and said they will never pray behind that imam. To the point that on that day, when the congregation was praying Jama and the imam was the one that led, the person prayed themselves individually. And you are expecting reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are expecting to ask Allah for forgiveness to forgive you. No, there's no forgiveness because you've taken your own personal agenda. Leave whatever it is you see that scholar is doing wrong, leave it to Allah to judge. But the validity of his knowledge or what's the word I'm looking for? His status as a leader, the verification of his knowledge to be able to lead is valid, is a fact. You cannot, you cannot throw that away. So you now say, oh, because of this agreement, you're not going to pray behind him, and you're praying individually in a mosque that is praying 5 times daily prayer. So these are issues that is causing cracks, particularly among our Nigerian Muslim community brotherhood and sisterhood. Look at our Asian community. They do what they can. They support each other. That's why when they came to this country, they stayed and they supported. A lot of them are in businesses that we Nigerians cannot even think to reach. They've gone far and far and far. Some of them are, go to the GP, go to some other trades, industries. They will be the top professionals there because they help each other. They shout each other. There is no such thing as this and that. Oh, I'm not going to help them because, this is you. I work hard. You work hard yourself. You go and do it on your own. And you forget that, yeah, Allah gave you the opportunity. Allah made it easy for you, but you're making it difficult because Allah can take that away. So Brotherhood is very important, and is a lesson that we need to learn and take, because it is very, very relevant in our community, in our Nigeria community, that is breaking us apart. And lastly, I would just mention that another lesson as well that we could, look at as well is, with our neighbors as well, is the fact that the migration, the place we go, the country, or what we do in this day and age, as I said, that migration is to move from one status to another, one state to another, travel from one place to another. But look at many of us on this platform, we emigrated to this country. This is not our birth country. This is not where we originally from. We emigrated here. But for what purpose? Was it for a halal purpose, or was it for haram? That's the ultimate question. That you can say you want to migrate and do this and that. And what did the Prophet said? The Prophet said in the hadith that they asked him, what is the best hijrah? And he said that the best hijrah is the one that you do that does not displease Allah, that avoids anything that Allah has made haram. So, and again, in another hadith as well, the Prophet said that, the emigrant is the one that abstains from that which Allah has prohibited. But look at us Muslims today. Some of us go to countries that, okay, first of all, we look at where are we coming from? Did we have any problems there? Could we have endured it a bit longer? Could we have looked for alternative solution within that community for us to be able to live a bit longer? But yet, we didn't have the patience. And many of our parents, they say, oh, we migrated because of the kids, because of our children. But some of us use, where we look at that, the country that you've taken us to, we will beg to differ. We will argue that, no, sorry, if I was you, then I would have gone to this country, I would have gone to that country. And many of, again, our children that our parents have done this for again, some of these children will move out of the country and go to another place to live. So when we are migrating, in terms of traveling to another country, we have to keep it in mind that, and look at what the Prophet ﷺ did. But for whatever reason that we're living, we have to look at where we're going. Is it going to benefit us spiritually, or is it going to make us lazy spiritually? Because if, yes, you're migrating from one place, maybe because, for greener pasture, for life, because you're thinking of the worldly matters, you're not thinking of your spirituality. If you're gonna lose something from your migration, then that migration is not, it was a failure, So we need to think about that. Another thing as well is from one state to another. Migration, Hijrah, is something that we're supposed to be doing every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. From, if we were to measure our actions, our knowledge, our our deen, our iman, and that back to 1 year, we should be able to say, alhamdulillah, yes, I used to do this bad thing before, but I've left it and I start to do this. Oh, I used to struggle with this before, but now, alhamdulillah, Allah has made it easy for me. But no, we are so lazy that we feel comfortable in that comfort zone, that yes, this is the way I know it, though, this is the way I've been taught to, and we just stay there. We don't want to move. We're not going back, fine, but we're not moving forward. We're stagnant. We're in one position. And Islam is all about knowledge, because what that person says to you might be wrong. That person could have made a mistake. You need to apply your own, you need to do your own research. Seek scholars, go and learn. Knowledge is not too late. Many of us were running after career. Some of us in our 40s, in our 50s, even we have our parents in their 60s, that they're still going to colleges, universities, or online studies, because maybe they want to take something back home to go and establish, or they want to upgrade themselves. But you forget about your spirituality. You're saying, it's difficult. Oh, subhanallah. I did walima, I did Quranic walima when I was young, but it's difficult and that. this language is difficult, but some of us, we've been able to learn another language easily. Some of us are putting our children to go and learn French, to go and learn Spanish. For what? What are they going to use it for? English, they're going to learn naturally. And if they want to learn a different language, let them to go and do that themselves. Yoruba, you're not teaching them that, but you're teaching them a foreign language. And this is the problem with Nigerian, especially we Yoruba Muslims. You're not teaching them Yoruba, your own fatherland, motherland language, but you're teaching them foreign language. So you're already putting it in their mind that they are foreign child. They're not Nigerian. They will grow up to never want to go to Nigeria or never want to adopt themselves to be Nigerian. And they forget they're Nigerian because that's where your origin is from. Even our parents that have lived there most of their life, they were not born in this country, they were brought from Nigeria. So these are things that when we think of migration, we have to be thinking of that every day. Us youths, we are very lazy in the sense that we are easily influenced by our surroundings. We keep saying, one day I will grow, one day I will do this, and some of us now, we have the capability, the means, the financial means, and the health, we are healthy enough to go to Hajj, but instead, we are accumulating properties, we are engaging in riba-based mortgages, we are taking out loans that are not halal and going to this, buying this and that. It is permissible in Islam to ensure you're stable, particularly as a man, to provide for your family. But we don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know tomorrow. You don't know how healthy you'll be tomorrow. You don't know what could happen to you tomorrow. So if what we need is a basic form of comfortability and sustenance. Once you can achieve that, then your next priority should be your spirituality, which should be priority at all times. Because you may think that, oh, I've got it to this level now. Okay, now I'm able to recite the Quranic alphabet. Okay, maybe next year I will learn to recite. And next year, Allah says, okay, it's your time to go. May Allah spare our lives for much, much longer. But we can continue to make that dua, but Allah does not owe us anything. It does not have to give us long life. It does not have to give us health. It does not have to give us any tranquility whatsoever. We can be doing all the charity of the whole world. We can be praying 5 times. We can be pleasing Him, but He doesn't have to do anything for us. And that's the reason why we need to make haste. My young brothers and sisters, we surround ourselves with friends that, maybe, yes, we are on a sort of basic level, or our iman is lacking a little bit, but maybe by coming to our salatu or going to events, maybe it's but we now surround ourselves with friends that they have no religion, they are maybe atheists, or they are maybe Muslims like that, but there is no knowledge. They are not benefiting in any way. And gradually, surely, because gradually, you some of the things that you're doing before, it will totally become zero. You will be going to clubbing, you will be making excuses that, oh, I'm not drinking, I'm just attending the party there. Oh, I'm only just drinking a cup. Oh, it is not haram to smoke. I will smoke shisha and that. But we forget that, smoking cigarette there is not haram per se. But Allah says we should not do things that would cause us harm, or that will lead to our health risk. And smoking and that, and people argue about shisha. Shisha obviously has a tobacco in it. That's a fact that you can go and look into. So there are many things that we go to do with our friends that we engage in. Some of us, youth, again, because of the Western influences, we go on holiday. We just go and like, oh yeah, I'd love to go to this country. Islam does not say we should, yes, part of that is traveling. Travel with your friends, go out with your family. But every single thing we are doing should be bounded by Islam. That country you're going to, is there something that could lead you to commit haram? Would you be able to practice your deen there for that duration you'll be there? Have you looked into the masjid in that area? Or if there's no masjid, would you be able to pray? Some of us don't even take our prayer mats. Some of us don't even, what am I even saying? Some of us that we don't even know we don't even check Qibla. We don't even know if there's a Qibla. We don't even know enough. We just go on holiday. We go to the beaches. We dress in a sort of a haram and that, and so on and so forth. So again, just so that I don't take too much about that, my last message is that let's encourage ourselves, brothers and sisters, that Hijrah is something to be done every single day of our lives, because Hijrah is not just about travel. Like I said, that what it means is migration. And migration could be from one state to another. It could be elevating yourself, from elevating your iman, because your iman, you can know the old Quran, know the fake, the Aqidah, the Hadith, all of it. It does not necessarily make you a pious person. What is important is our character as well, and even having a good character and having the deen doesn't necessarily mean you stop learning, or does not mean that you stop finding ways to elevate your iman. There are people that are very well firm in the deen, and their character is it is out of this world, but just a little trial that Allah befell them with, and they lost it. They were shouting, be themselves, why me? Why not so? And in that moment of emotional period, they forgot who they are as a Muslim. They forgot that Allah, will test us in many ways. The Prophet said to us that if you're living a life that is going on a smooth, like look at roads, for example. There's no smooth road. Yes, on the motorway, you could be driving on a linear line for like miles. But even when you look at some of these motorways, it is not straight all the way. There's a little bend, there's a slightly curve and that. So the Prophet said that if you're living a life that is smooth, like going smooth and smooth and smooth and smooth, beware and be careful and be warned. Why? Because there's a trial coming. Because no Muslim lives a life of just peace, a life of tranquility, a life of happiness, joyous, wealth, richness. No, if you're living that, you're not a Muslim. It is not. Allah will test you to see, okay, you said you believe in me. You said, oh, you this and that. Let me test you with this and see how truly how firm your iman is. So, to my young brothers and sisters, let's try and elevate ourselves. And if we want to relocate to a country and that, let's think about the advantages, the benefits of that migration first, before, unless we're fleeing violence or we're being persecuted. But other than that, let's think about solutions and where we're going. Is there a safe, how do we establish ourselves in that, our spirituality, and be able, because there are people that have gone to another country. Look at France, for example, now. France have decided to make laws, decided to ban certain things. I think they've banned the burqa, I think, or maybe the hijab as well. I can't remember. There are things that they've banned, even saying that they cannot call out Adan or so, or something like that, that a recent thing they've said. So again, look at that. Now you might say, I want to go to France because of a job. You're thinking first of the money that will end, money that you may have it, or you may still not be enough. You may still want to be running after much more. But in the process, you're losing your deen gradually, to the point that you become of old age, you'll be too tired, and you don't have the energy to do anything, any of that at all. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to make it easy for us. May He continue to bless us and shower His rahmah upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Sahaba, and his family for what they did back then, for the pain and suffering. May Allah forgive them of all sins they committed, for all the pain and suffering they went through, and for making an Islam easier for us to practice today. And I pray for all Muslims across the world going through one suffering, our brothers in Libya, our brothers and sisters in Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, China, India, Burma, and so on. Wherever it is that they are, in Nigeria as well, in Africa, wherever they are, that they are suffering, may Allah come to their head. May Allah safeguard them. May Allah protect them. May Allah safeguard their iman, most importantly, that no matter what they are going through, may their iman never be found lacking. May their iman never decrease, but continue to grow. And may Allah, protect them and avail them from the suffering and bring a stop to the persecution and bring a stop to the restrictions and to the racism, to the discrimination, to the Islamophobia against them. And I pray as well to all Muslims on this platform, to all Muslims across the globe, to all Muslims to the UK, to Allah to continue to shower His rahmah and to make it easy for us to practice al-Islam, to make it easy for us to grow in the deen and to elevate our iman and never to befall us with a trial or calamity that will shake in us or that would affect our iman and that will take us out of the fold of Islam. Allahumma ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته